Hey, what's up, guys? Two for today. I have a Legends recap and a Generations recap, which getting that real world in. Generations. It's been a while since I played, so like if you like a little refresher as to what's happening. Cass is a it's kind of like a doctor to his people, but like he has like some powers associated with it, like specifically like healing abilities called this Nui energy, and he got drafted by the military to go to this place called the Darklands, which is the result of a separation, and I think it was a civil war as well, where basically we were the racist bad guys, I guess you could say. I don't even know if it's like quite that clear, cut and dry, because I think the criteria for removal, and it wasn't like concentration camps, and because I think I joked before, it's like we were basically like the Nazis, but it wasn't to that extent. It was our species had survived some pretty nasty stuff. Like before this, we had survived a plague that wiped out 85% of our population. We had been oppressed by like these psychic overlords, and like they were experimenting on us and all this other stuff. So we've been through some stuff. But apparently, after this plague and after these remaining 15% of the population, like we started to have a problem with genetic disorders, and specifically like them becoming more and more widespread within the population. So our solution is to take people with these genetic disorders, because we didn't have the medical treatment at the time to fix them, and it was just like it was kind of like starting to go rampant throughout the population, or it had the potential to within just several generations. And we were like, okay, you guys are going to live out the rest of your lives over here. You can do whatever, but we're going to remove you from the general population. Hindsight and everything like that, like probably I think today, like we're probably medically advanced that we might have been able to fix some of those things, but back then that wasn't the case. So it's like as we're familiar in history, it's like there is that hindsight of things. But there's been this divide between Nui proper on Ra, which is the name of the planet, and these Darklands for quite some time, to the point where I think like there's still like generally embargoes, I think, placed more by the Darklands, just because they want nothing to do with Nui proper, because they still feel slighted for what had happened in the past. I got drafted to basically go over there and help with a some sort of outbreak that was occurring. Fast forward a bit to like the latest session is like I'm kind of researching the excuse me, oh, stupid cough. Researching the, we'll call it a virus for now, because like it's not a bacterium, but it's like it's definitely something different. And I was like examining this 4-year-old patient who was like very terminal, like very late stage in this thing. And I had sit there and talked with like the my liaison doctor, like to their people, and was like, okay, like there's gonna be some risks with this, but like it's, I'm gonna do what I can to to avoid putting the patient in any danger. Like this is just an exploratory exam to try to determine the nature of the virus, and all that kind of stuff. So I have her like set up some scanners so she can hopefully better understand what I'm going to do. Like, and like not even like thinking about it, just kind of like a general thoroughness to it. And I go through the scan, and it takes like 3 to 5 hours, but it's a very intense process, because this virus is very different in that it's actively resisting attempts to understand it, but also looking to harm the host in the process while I'm trying to do this. So I'm like kind of stepping around very carefully as I go about this process, and it's kind of like a meditative thing more so than anything else. Like it's not like I'm sitting there with a hacksaw and like opening this kid up. Anyway, it takes 3 to 5 hours, and when I come out of it, like I'm soaked because I'm in a hazmat suit. Like they don't understand the nature of this virus at all, and they have like very good medical technology down here. Like theirs is definitely more reliant on technology, whereas ours seems much more mystical to theirs. And like even amongst our own people, it's like you can train Nui energy, but it's very difficult to quantify or even pick up on any kind of scans. So like that just like makes it even a bit more of a leap. Yeah, so I do the scan, and I found out a couple things about the virus. One, it's resistive, and I don't want to call it sentient, but like it has a set of programming at least where it is resistive and learning to what's going on against it to like try to counteract it. Additionally, it seeks out recessive genetic anomalies inside of a patient. We'll call it a host, because like I said, it is almost parasitic in nature. And it seeks out recessive genetic anomalies. Not anomalies, no, so much. I mean, anomalies, yes, but also like malnormalities, like bad things within a patient that might not have normally expressed themselves unless they had kids with the same recessive trait, and then like those two recessive trait combined become a active trait. If you remember our high school genetics, um, which, like I said, it's definitely on the nerdy side as far as Cass's sessions goes. Like it's definitely a little bit more on the cerebral than the I go out and hit something kind of thing. But it's like it's more of the mystery surrounding it and kind of uncovering. The DM does a very good job of not necessarily providing breadcrumbs, but like allowing hypotheses and then like the exploration of them, and then sometimes there is something along the way that backs them up, or that there's like nothing to corroborate it. So like it's kind of an ebb and flow, poke and prod kind of thing. But it entertains me, so I guess that's what's important. Um, anyway, so and people are generally horrified when they learn about this, that it basically seeks out recessive traits and then makes them dominant traits, and basically like any problem you might have. So that's extra bad. I didn't even think about this at the time, but like if the reason because like I said, the doctors, when I explained this to them, all looked horrified, and it might be extra bad here because I wasn't even thinking about this at the time. Based on their history, most of them, their ancestors were exiled here because of genetic traits that, like, because of this very thing. And yeah, that's like a doubly bad thing for them because they probably have more so than anyone else. Beyond that, we're still calling it a virus. The virus uses the host that it's in as an energy cell. Now, normally a virus will use like a living host in a similar way, but this one specifically feeds on life energy, that kind of mystical element to it. Um, so them putting the patients in cryostasis, like in a no, it wasn't cryostasis. It's like induced coma. I'm sorry. I can't remember. Maybe it is like a cryostasis. Whatever it is an induced coma. But whether or not there's cryo involved, I don't remember offhand. I could probably look at my notes, but I don't feel like it. Because I don't feel like going through a pause to look it up. The That process does a very good job of slowing down the advance of this thing, mainly because it weakens the life force energy of the host so much that the thing, it doesn't starve out, but it like it almost goes dormant. But as soon as they wake back up, like it has attached itself to the power supply and starts to like basically go through the process again. So that's really bad, but it's also good that they, I mean, just happen to induce comas. Like I said, a lot of the stuff deals with the brain. Like there's these tumors and lesions all over the brain in the late stage patients. So it's like their best course of action is just and like rapid onset aging. So it's like their best course of action, I guess, to them was just like put them like in a medically induced coma, and it happened to work out where it cuts off the power supply for this thing. Those are like the three, I think, main factors I learned about the virus we're calling it. But also Cass is starting to think more and more that it is associated with something called Quare energy, which is the mirror to Nui energy. It's like two sides of the same coin, whereas Nui energy uses uses a patient's natural life energy, but it redirects or greatly accelerates the healing process by using up a host energy. So it's not like I pour my energy into them. It's more like I manipulate their energy, which is definitely like a little different from how we're usually associating with things. But you know, it makes sense in its own way. Whereas Quari energy does the same thing, but it does it to damage or harm or all this other kind of crazy stuff. Yeah, so that Cass is starting to think more and more it's like a specific user doing this, just based on the parasitic nature of it. We're calling it, even though like Nui energy is like technically parasitic, but it's parasitic. It'd be more symbiotic because there's a benefit to the host, in the sense that I'm using the host's energy, but like it's also healing the host or restoring them or repairing them or like the host of other good things that Nui Energy does. I come out of it. I explain that to doctors. There's like a bunch of people there. Like there's Dr. Amara, Dr. Oma. There's who else is there? I know Dr. Retu. Um, there's one other one. Oh, Dr. Goss. And they're like kind of furiously taking notes as I regurgitate everything that I had learned from this scan. And I explained to them, I was like, the dangers that the the patient is in. I was like even something as simple as a scan, as like the virus, we're still calling it, is looking to attack, is looking to resist, and is looking to damage the host. So I was like, basically what I had uh, extended to them was, it's more specifically to Dr. Amara, because she's my liaison, is like, listen, I was like, there are things I can do here, but the patient will be at risk. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to allow you to run it up your respective chain, and in the meantime, we're to continue our research, because I have my team Miriam and Lyria working out some other angles, and also just kind of catching up with the research that all the doctors have here done to try to treat this disease. And we'll basically present to you everything that we can, as well as the risk associated with it, and allow you to kind of make the final decision. So in a sense, like, I'll basically be your surgical tool for it, but like, we're going to try to give you the best possible risk assessment we can. This is all, and I'm not emphasizing this because it's hilarious what turns out, but it is nonetheless still hilarious, because this is things that Cass had kind of thought out and explicitly explained to the people that he was working with. I'm very exhausted after that. They explained that the patient's vital signs got dangerously high for 3 to 5 minutes whenever I was basically working on him, and but they did stabilize afterwards. And I'm basically exhausted from this procedure, just because the use of Nui energy in itself is, it's not necessarily exhausting. Like, I cleared out an entire kids ward, like, just by healing them. They had like broken bones, contusions, cuts, scrapes, everything like that, like just basic stuff, and I'm able to heal that like within, I think it was like an hour or two, and I cleared out the entire ward and wasn't exhausted. I could do more, but like, I was also like a bit low on energy. But with this, it was like, because of the resistive nature of it, because it was basically a constant fight for 3 to 5 hours, I was very drained. And I went to my one of my team members, Miriam. I had talked about their findings. They had found a bunch of redacted stuff based on something we were looking for, that in an article I had read a long time ago, Quarry energy users tend to exhibit black circles around the eyes and black spots on their skin. Now, black circles around the eyes is a very generic trait to have, especially when it comes to exhaustion or like low levels of vitamin D, which they shouldn't technically have it, because they have a vitamin regimen here, but like, they receive no natural sunlight. So if their bodies work in the same way, or if they haven't adapted over the several hundred years that they've been, I guess, isolated down here, then that, it might be a more common occurrence, like if people aren't taking their vitamins or something like that. So we looked for those kind of people that showed those symptoms, and specifically those two symptoms together. We were looking for people with research backgrounds and things like that to see, because like I said, the way this infection worked, it was almost set up as if it was a study, or or an experiment in some kind of way. A terrible experiment, because they're doing it on young children and everything like that. And it also, something, and this is something I'm putting together right now as I speak about it, which is interesting, is these people do everything in their power, at least on the surface, to make themselves seem better than we are, in that they don't suffer from like the same crime problems, like everything that like is a fault of our society, which is like similar, I guess, to a society that we would be used to, as far as like, that we have some liberties, we have some freedoms, we also have some problems, like we have crime and everything like that, like most places do. Like, this society is built up to be better, and any kind of shortcomings like are dealt with in the most fair way possible, but also like maybe even a bit stricter, to make sure that things don't fall into the state that we're in. And we are by no means in a bad state as far as like our society goes, but like this one is like extra strict to make sure that they come off as better. So the idea that there's someone out here doing this is like extra bad for them because it looks bad, it reflects bad on them, but also because I'm an outsider specifically from that faction that they dislike, to know, like, because they want to, and like I said, to Cass, it's like he doesn't even think about these people on like any kind of basis. Like to them, like every day they're driven by their hatred towards us and what we did to them hundreds and hundreds of years ago, generations ago, I guess is the best way to say it. Because Time was asking about like lifespans, and I was like, I think they live to be like 80 years old, but because a lot of us have connection to that Nui energy, it gives us longer lifespans, as in upwards of 120 years, I want to say. So we do get like an extra 40 years on them sometimes. Now that's not everyone has access to the energy, and not everyone wields it, but because of that, like our lifespan, average lifespan, extends outward from theirs. Also, they live in a pretty terrible place, which probably shortens their lifespan just because of like air quality, lack of natural sunlight, like maybe some nutrient deficiency, which they seem like they have largely under control, but still a gap between us. Anyway, long story short, um, there is that like divide between us, and I think that the potential that's one of their members, one of their citizens that is doing this, makes them look extra bad because it's extra horrific that they're essentially like killing kids through what is either a medical or a mystical experiment. um, yeah, so uh, talk to Miriam. We're looking for people who have this, who have the scientific background, or not even like a scientific, like a research background, or something like that would fit. That they might want to like take part in this kind of thing, like because it's very methodical the way it's been set up, but also very, excuse me, very cautious. Um, I don't stay there too long. I read some of the papers that he does, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna get some sleep. So I sleep extra long the next day, about 10 hours when I usually sleep 4 to 6 normally. I can go for 8, but like just because of my busy life schedule that the character has, like he tends to sleep less. I go in there and uh, I start basically helping my team with the research. And I explained to them, I was like, the struggle here is we have to build two foundations. The first foundation is our own, in that they have like 6 months plus research of this virus. And they have these things called the Edusian alcoves, which I mentioned before, are like these tubes where information is injected directly into your brain. Cass has not used them and has kind of urged his team not to take part in them because it's a very unknown technology, and just like he doesn't like the idea of someone like injecting anything into his brain as far as thoughts, ideas, or specifically in this case, information with their medical records. Now it might be more efficient that way, but it's just like it's a precaution that I'm willing to take. So they take some time to get the hard copies, but we do get the hard copies, and that's where a lot of the redacted stuff comes in. We got to work our way around, but we do have we're given clearance to like request like some of the redactions be lifted, but it's gonna take some time. And also like they didn't want to like do it right away. They wanted to wait like to kind of get my way in. So I had helped them out with the research, just kind of like going through stacks of papers and building that foundation of our understanding of what's going on, and also like trying to best pinpoint where it is. The second foundation we have to build, and this is something I had talked with Dr. Ritu, is he's the chief of cardiology, as I mentioned. That they don't have access to Nui energy, so their medical thing is entirely scientific and mechanically based. To them, it's like I can go up and lay my hands on somebody and they can get better. So it's like, call it like a small miracle or something like that. But like to me, it's still science. Like there's that gap which we remember from Thor, is like the difference between like magic and science is like sometimes just like a matter of understanding. Now magic can still be magic, which Nui energy kind of falls under, but there is a science to it nonetheless. Um, yeah, so uh, they came. Yeah, so anyway, like the second foundation I'm building is trying to bring their medical staff, especially like their higher ups, like Amara, my uh, liaison, Retsu, Dr. Omaha, Dr. Gross, like those kind of people, like I want them to understand what I'm doing so that they can provide their expertise on the situation, especially because they've been dealing with this for 6 months and I'm going in on like 3 or 4 days at this point. So it's like if I can have them understand better what I can do, then they can better advise me on how to advance. Like if there's any kind of things I need to watch out for or anything like that. And it's like I said, it's a very cautious thing in the sense that you know to to Cass, this is something I like explicitly said to the DM. I was like, this isn't like a political stunt or anything like that. Like, he's not down here to like save kids and save the day. Like, he's down here to treat patients. And whether or not like that he's the one that does it or that he provides the insight to allow them to do it, he doesn't care. Like, at the end of the day, like they're kind of like sick kids kind of thing, where it's like he's now Cass is very much like an on the edge type researcher or type physician, where it's like kind of like houseish, where he'll pass up like usually whenever he's not like drafted, he'll pass up like a lot of regular stuff because someone lower on the totem pole can handle it, whereas he'll look for the more experimental stuff because he'll look to push the envelope in that regard. But like in this specific scenario, because he is drafted, he looks at it a little bit differently. That all being said, I think Dr. Retu comes in. Where is this? Talk to Dr. Retu about it. Yeah. Dr. Amara is leaving for personal reasons. She's my liaison, and they're going to give me another one. And I'm upset about it because I had basically used Mara as a confidant, where I basically said, I said to her, I was like, I'm going to report to you everything I know. I was like, I understand you report to superiors and that there is a chain of command, and I respect that entirely. I was like, but I'm going to leave it up to your discretion, because there is things that I'm telling you that if something exists up that chain of command, could put things in danger. I was like, I know that's a lot to put on you, but I was like, it's just the reality of the situation. I was like, all I can do is be transparent about what I'm doing and kind of leave the rest up to you. Like, specifically the thing with the quarry energy, the thing with the idea that this looks like it actually may be a manufactured thing, possibly some sort of research or experiment being done by somebody to these kids. I was like, all that kind of stuff. And like, if the right or wrong person hears about that, like, it might tip things off. It might like put the patients in greater danger. And I was like, I understand that's like a heavy weight to put on you, but like, this is like, I'm in unfamiliar territory and you're my liaison. So like, I'm leaving it up to you. And that was like the thing I told her about the quarry energy. I know that you've seen firsthand what I can do, so like that I'm not like some charlatan that's out there like selling snake oils or anything like that. Like, we're not talking about like kids like acting like they feel better. We're talking about broken bones and X-rays and seeing them heal in a matter of minutes. So it's like there's a tangible element to it, but uh, you know, this whole thing like with quarry energy, it's like it's another intangible that you're kind of being forced to believe in a sense. So it's a difficult leap, I think, for some of them. Um, yeah, so she had left, and I, of course, made the joke that, like, someone zugged her, and zugged is one of my security guards, and I always joke that, like, Casimir, when he crosses him, he's going to give him, like, the dictator thing, where, like, if you remember the movie with Sacha Baron Cohen, where he just does the little hand to his neck kind of thing to have them executed. That's like, I was like, oh, man, she got zugged really hard. But, yeah, so she quits. I'm upset, or like perturbed, I guess is a better thing. Like, not like upset, like oh no, but like just kind of angry or frustrated. And I explained to Dr. Retu, because he's like if you want, he's like I'm sure they'll replace you with someone capable, and it's like you could have a choice in the selection process. I was like, no, I was like, I do not care about any of that. Like, I'm sure that they're going to give me the best possible person to do this job. Like, that is not a concern of mine. The concern of mine is you basically bulldoze my foundation and are forcing me to start from scratch. Dr. Amara and I had worked closely together, and up until that point, like, she was a bridge between myself and the rest of your medical community, in that she had the most hands-on experience with what I could do, and kind of could act as a sounding board, but also a reassurance from like basically the factional thing, like where it's like us versus the Darkland, like the my people versus the Darkland people, like that she's a liaison in a literal sense of like, okay, this guy's intentions clearly are good. Like, he's out there, he's like trying to heal kids, and he's trying to present to me the risks of associated with that. Anyway, there was also another thought I had that's coming up, but I basically explained that to him. I was like, you're basically starting the foundation over. I was like, I understand there's bureaucracy to that. I was like, I can still be frustrated at though, because I was like, this is a setback and a time sensitive issue. I was like, there are patients out there that are sick and that are dying, and that like I'm going to have to rebuild this foundation to better help you guys understand. He kind of like passes on like his condolences with it, like you know, it's like it's unfortunate, but it is the way it is. And I'm like, yeah, I understand completely. I'm not mad at you. It's just it is a frustrating thing, and the fact that she didn't come to me with any of this is also frustrating. Now, this is something again I had a thought as I'm giving this recap that I didn't realize in the session, but Doctor Oma comes in next, and he reports to me that Laku died a good death. Laku didn't die a good death. Laku was a sick kid, and uh, he was already weak and terminal. But he died after the procedure and after he had stabilized, which he was already in a bad way. He was one of the first two patients to exhibit signs, so he also received the most delayed treatment. They had the least understanding of what was going on, and he was also like I said, being the first like that, like he was in the worst state. Um, and I'm like, okay, like I'm really sorry to hear that, and I was, you know, just I was upset, like you know, having a patient die on you is never easy. And then he says, and criminal charges are being brought against you for neglect and malpractice. And that's where I was put on pause. So I didn't even get a chance to be frustrated or anything like that. So the thing I didn't think about before I lost track of that is maybe they explained that to Amara, or someone, somehow Amara got whiff of that. And maybe it was, she was just like, no, like you guys are stupid. And the only reason I say this is because this is kind of my line of thinking is like, you guys are idiots if you think this. Like, he's gone through every precaution and like did everything possible to like bring us in the loop, including heal an entire ward of children as a demonstration to help us understand what he can do. Beyond that, like he didn't go in willy nilly. Like he set up like checks and you know, like a system of checks, not just on the personnel side to make sure that he was okay to do it, but also like checks to minimize the risks along the way to the patient, but with the understanding that this was heading into uncharted waters and that the situation was dire enough that we need to find something because your medical experts have run into a complete brick wall, and if left untreated, all these kids are gonna die. So like that's my kind of later thought. It's like maybe she kind of took that and they're like, listen, as like, you know, you're kind of off. Like if he kind of suckered you in, like, or you know, you're no longer his liaison. So like maybe that's why she never got a chance to talk to me. I'm kind of secretly hoping that's what it was because I felt like the two of us had a bit of connection like that. The other thing is Cass isn't like, I get, like I said, it's call it like a certain sense of arrogance, but like Cass isn't worried. He's just annoyed. He's frustrated again because, and I didn't get a chance to react because I will get a chance to react next session. He's just frustrated again because it's like, you guys are idiots. Like I've literally done beyond due diligence, and I'm here working on a terminal patient with experimental procedures because everything else has failed, like, and that there's 12 more lives or 6 or 11 more lives in the line at this point. Like normally we would be even more cautious, but like every second counts kind of thing. It's like, and this has been reported and you know this, and he's like I said, if you think back to a lot of the stuff I said, like the checks that he's kind of put into place, or like the cautions, like this isn't even something I considered that would happen. But it's just like, if you're gonna if you want to like make me a political prisoner or something like that, which I wouldn't put past these people, I was like, I guess that's a way to kind of veil it. But like he's gonna be annoyed. He's like, listen, he's like, you can put me on trial or anything like that. Like whatever. Like you can give me whatever sham of justice. Like, you know, kind of is gonna come out of this. Which he's not gonna be good representing himself. I can promise you that, because he has like that arrogant, annoyed thing going on for him. Um, but yeah, like you could put me on trial. It's like, but the reality is like, you called me here. These kids are still dying, and you've run out of options because your medical technology has basically reached its limits. And yeah, it's like, if you want to say that like I came in and neglectfully killed this terminal patient when like literally a day before I go in and heal like an entire ward of children, and like see to each of them individually, to and even go beyond that. Like there was one patient who was like beyond like the physical injury, seemed like that they were suffering from some mental things like depression, anxiety, stuff like that. And I basically said, because like my abilities extend beyond just the physical, and it's like, it was like one of those ones where it was like disguised in a sense, like, but I was able to discern it, and I says like, listen, I'm pretty confident like this kid needs some counseling, like possibly some medication for it or anything like that. And they basically did a thing, and they got back to me and said, yeah, like okay, like he, kind of like that was taught to like bottle it all up, but like he does have a problem, and they're gonna see to it. So it's just like to go out of your way to do that, and then it's just like, oh yeah, this is the same kid who's like going in there all cowboy style and hacking up this like 4-year-old and like being neglectful. It's just like, you guys are idiots. Like at this point, like if you're going to make me a political prisoner, I guess that's the way to do it. But like otherwise, this whole thing is a sham. So that's where I ended my session. I have another session I think lined up this Friday, so we'll hopefully continue from there.